within dressing rooms. You can close the door. You can close the door at the training ground. You can
pitying look from Ray. Let's have a look at Ray's face. Kean out.
I was getting, you know, a bit of a hard time.
So you think that the problem was that the fans don't like the owners, so therefore, because you were appointed by the owners, by association, they weren't having you as well.
Well, yeah, because you know there was other sections of the fans, and there was
Kean
football
out.
fans from all other
Kean
clubs.
out.
You know, we're struggling to get their head around it. You know.
No one could understand why they didn't like you.
That's what I felt. And the good thing is,
how could they?
You know, within dressing rooms,
Ray Wilkins,
you can close the door. You can close the door at the training ground. You can work hard together.
And you can tell bullshit behind closed doors. Ray's face.
The thing is, what we know, you know, within dressing rooms, you can close the door. You can close the door at the training ground. You can work hard together. You can batten down the hatches
and make sure that closed doors.
You know, the team are at it every game, and I can count in one hand in my time there where we were off it. You know, we had a great.
What, on your 93-fingered hand?
Sleeves up, and at times it was tough, but I mean, a lot of the performances show that we had a great togetherness.
I think a lot of the anger and frustration that we've certainly had this morning via Twitter about the situation feels like a lot of the fans feels like you weren't particularly honest.
Yeah.
You couldn't be honest because of the position you're in, or you weren't honest. And you talked about
because he's a congenital liar.
There's Chadwick, someone whose Twitter name is Phone Crew, Matthew Leach, all talking about Salgado, Nelson, Roberts. Why couldn't you tell the truth, or why didn't you tell the truth about why they weren't playing? I think you mentioned that Ryan Nelson was in a bad way, and then he started for Spurs a few days later. Yeah. What was the situation there?
Well, Ryan had a really bad knee problem, and you know, I spoke to him on a number of occasions where I said, "Can you give us 20 minutes? Can you give us half an hour?" And he said, "It just doesn't feel right." So he spent.
So it was Ryan that was saying he didn't want to play, as opposed to you not being able to play financially?
He wasn't saying that he couldn't play, just said, "My knee doesn't feel right. I don't even feel as though I can train." He never trained with the first team. He trained with Gary.
He didn't say he didn't want to play, but he couldn't train.
He felt that the intensity of the under-21 sessions
definitely didn't say, "I can't play."
His knee. And long talks with Dave Fever, who I think is probably the best physio out there, especially on knees. And
change the subject, Steve.
He just couldn't get to the intensity of the training, and that was coming from.
So how surprised were you then when you left and you started for Spurs?
Massively, because 3 days before that he was meant to go back to United States and go on a coaching role,
a drinking role,
for Spurs, which was a massive surprise to everybody.
Amazing.
What about Michel Salgado? Why wasn't Michel playing?
Well, Michel, you know, I don't want to get into I can't get into the ins and outs of anybody's contract, but
yes, you can.
You know, and I don't want to. You know, I don't want to be here to give detail on the individual.
I suppose that's my point, Steve. Is the fact that you, in the position you were in, because you
were your hands tied.
Were your hands tied in terms of actually telling
the thing that I could do, Ben, I don't think it was my position. To be talking to the fans about the detail of somebody's contract. You know, that was up to, you know, directors, chief executives, managing directors, communication officers, whoever it was. I don't
invent a load of job titles. Go on.
But you're taking all the sick.
Of course, but you know that there's you know what it's like, Ben, at clubs where you have a structure.
Keep calling him Ben.
You know,
make that rapport.
Chief exec.
It'll go easy on you then.
Club statements.
Ben thinks you're a liar.
On a weekly basis, I was having to answer those questions where it wasn't really my position to answer it, and on a number of occasions I said I want to just talk about the team, the way we're going to play, the opposition, because you know I was a public figure of really everybody, you know, and that was difficult, and I thought that was unfair.
A national
how hard was it for you when Shephard came in and then suddenly was publicly putting out things saying, you know, if we lose 3 in a row, Steve Kean's going to lose his job, and coming up with statements like that?
You know, I think everybody in football, there's certain times where other members of staff come in. If it's a new chief exec, if it's a director of football, if it's a sports director, you know, all you can do is try and work with them. You know,
God, you are so boring.
We had a great dressing room.
I bet you're not
no
this
matter
boring
what we
after a
said, if
few
it was
beers,
you know, in a
when you're
newspaper
telling bullshits
or
and
publicly,
slandering Sam Allardyce.
We were tight as a group.
Yeah,
we
when
just
Stephen and
stuck
Zonzi
together.
Came out
punched
and
you.
suggested that Morgan Pedersen was a pensioner, and of course then he went and scored, and you know, we all enjoyed the celebration when he did this. But from your perspective, when you've got people upstairs undermining
Steve Kean taught him how to
the
do that.
situation, you're trying to get things working on the pitch. That must have been crippling.
Yeah, it's difficult, and you know, you look back on it, and obviously it's difficult. You know, and I also remember a time when I was at Fulham, where when I was working on the staff there, and when John Tigana was manager, and for a short time, Franco Baresi came in as a director of football or a sporting director. I can't quite recall what his title was.
But he didn't have as much authority as you, surely.
You know, there's a focus that then it's taken away from what you're actually meant to be doing.
Not away from the
Everybody
Kean.
focused on the next game.
No.
Because there's a bit, you know, there's
Who the
some power
fuck are
plays
you,
that can happen
Baresi?
inside
What
any
have you
club,
ever
and
done in
I'm
the
sure there's
game?
many clubs that's happening, you know, right as we speak at the top level. But all we can do is the manager,
Drink.
or as the head coach, whatever your position is,
Set the cones up.
is try and continually
Drink special
try and
brew.
keep that away from the players. And I was
Soil your
juggling
pants.
a
And
lot
tell
more
bullshit.
than anybody could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And all I was trying to do was
lie.
forget about that as much as I could, focus on the games that were coming up. And you know, you can speak to any of the players. I know you've had Paul Robinson here on the couch. You know, Jason Roberts, I know is on other Sky programmes regular.
He's been on this as well.
We had a good dressing room, and it doesn't make it any easier.
Dressing
You know, that's the cards that you're dealt. You've just got to try and get through it.
When you look back at it, do you think the fans were hard on you, or did they see and envisage what was going to happen to their football club?
No, I think, Cam, as I say, I don't know if there's any type of relationship between the fans and the owners.
No, the question was, do you think the fans were hard on you?
You know, probably.
Don't change the subject.
Most of the fans, you know, if you ask them, are they happy with the ownership of the club?
No,
I don't think
the manager.
and then it's fine when you're winning, but if you're losing games, then that comes out, and that's unfortunate.
Do you think
It's unfortunate
you can look at
you're a
the
liar.
taking over Blackburn and say that it's been a good thing for Blackburn?
Well, I don't want to say if it's good, bad, or indifferent, because you know, it's anybody's decision whether they want to buy a club.
Yeah, it's been
Well, they've
great.
gone from sort of mid-table Premier League down to the Championship, just avoided relegation from the Championship.
Little scratch of the neck.
It's there.
He's
The
feeling the
stats are
prickly
there,
heat
and the amount of players that were sold
of his
but
own
that's totally
bullshit.
out with the control of the manager. You know, if any owner at any club wants to buy £500 million worth of players or sell them, that's
Are you
that's
on
their
about?
prerogative. And then I can understand that fans would rather see you know, owners buying players, but you know, when that's out of your control, you've just got to try and adapt and put the best team on the pitch. And if somebody's injured or somebody moves or somebody's sold, you try and integrate the next best person, and you try and do the best you can.
Okay, unfortunately we don't have as much time
Cheers,
as we'd like to
Steve.
keep going, Steve, but do keep some questions coming in. There's plenty more that we'll try and get to Steve throughout the show. Seems to be talking about Blackburn. We're going to have a look at yesterday's Sky Bet Championship. Mark